much of a disappointment to you is it not to get liquor and transportation? And what specifically do you intend to do to try to get that in the fall?
Well, first off, keep in mind that it's always a two-year General Assembly. So it's not a disappointment. How could I be disappointed with the work that these men and women behind me did and the work of the men and women in the Senate did in passing those bills in some form? The House got a bill over to the Senate. That's never happened before in the history of this state. Transportation, the Senate got a bill over to the House. We need that bill. So we've made progress. These aren't easy things to do. There are, as you know, many interest groups with many, many different perspectives in a bill like this. So I can't be disappointed. I have to thank the people for what they did, and I certainly encourage them when they get back in the fall, let's get it done. Next question.
There's a Medicaid expansion bill now on its way to the House. How do you feel about being forced to expand Medicaid on a specific timetable?
Well, first off, I don't have a bill on my desk. So you're making an assumption. I'm not going to talk about that. But let's talk about the Medicaid in the first place. I've told you I have been working with Washington. My secretary, now I can call her secretary, not secretary nominee, Bev McArith, has been working hard down there along with the Department of Welfare in working with Washington to get reforms to the Medicaid system. We have to reform the Medicaid system. Keep in mind, the president himself said in 2009 it was a broken system. So we have to fix it. We have to fix it as it applies to Pennsylvanians and to our needs. And so we are working with them for some good common sense reforms, like a job search, a reasonable requirement for job search, a copay, possibly using money into the private sector to go into the private exchange. So I'm not going to talk about anybody being forced or anything, but we are going to be looking for those reforms.
In the past, a liquor privatization bill passes the House, and before it's on your desk, you voice your support for it. Why are you hesitant to voice your position on a Medicaid expansion bill?
Well, I just told you where I am on this. We're working to get the reforms. I have to see a bill that has reforms in it. Okay?
Governor, is the message you're sending out that you're pleased with how this turned out, that none of the three items have been enacted with the budget?
Well, no, I think everybody here would have liked to have been, had them all done, but it didn't happen. But this is the end of, if I'm going to equate it to a football game and the way the legislative session is set up, it's the end of the first quarter. We got 3 more quarters to go. In the back.
Governor Corbett, are you concerned about the quote-unquote linkage between transportation and liquor, that you might not be able to get one without the other, given the way some folks in the House seem to feel on those issues?
Well, Mike, you want to answer that for me? I heard her. I heard
hear him
you.
from the back. You
Yes.
don't need a microphone.
There's no linkage, and I will tell you that we think they, in fact, should not be linked. They should be decoupled. The fact of the matter is, the governor asked for an historic reform of the sale of wine and spirits to move us into the 21st century, and the House of Representatives delivered on March 21st. We sent a bill to the Senate. Now, I know that there were a better part of hearings for about 2.5 months. We think it could have been more efficient and that we could have had a singular debate on privatization. We didn't get a transportation bill to June 4th. We think that the issues should be not linked and that the merits of liquor privatization should be addressed on their own, and that we come up with a bill that can satisfy votes in the House and the Senate. And the governor was the leader out front, and he is the reason the bill got out of the House of Representatives, because he stood strong on the issue.
Robert?
Governor, you made a final plea for liquor privatization today. I wonder if that signals that that's your number one priority going into the fall of the 3 items.
No, I mean, you tend to try and read too many things in. Do we believe that we might be able to get a shot at it today? Which, of course, if I could get a shot at it today, if I could get a shot at it tomorrow, would I be looking to do that? Yes. It was just the way actions were taking place behind the scenes, conversations going on behind the scenes, and come September, October, we'll be right back there at it. You might hear me talk about it a few times in the meantime. Now, you got to ask one already. Pete?
Senator Pelletier said today that he was hoping that you would call on the House to pass transportation along with calling on the Senate to pass the other, and they did feel like it indicated a priority. Senator Tomlinson said so. Several other senators did.
Well,
So
I'm,
they felt that, you were showing.
I'm not showing favoritism to any one of the houses. I would say this. There was a bipartisan support on the transportation bill in the Senate when it came over. It's a bill that requires bipartisan support. We were looking for that. Some people decided that they'd rather play politics than good policy for the people of Pennsylvania. And so we don't have that bipartisan support yet. It's going to take bipartisan support. We know that. And I would hope that they would put aside the partisan nature of it and make it bipartisan. Next question. Right there.
Governor, can you talk about why you decided to make extra funding for Philly schools contingent on approval by your education secretary if some reforms happen?
Well, because we want to see that the reforms are done. It's that simple. And,
Governor, will liquor, transportation, and pensions remain your three priorities until you get them done or for the remainder of your term? And do you know how you can make those things happen?
well, let's put it this way. There's a lot of priorities out there. I am sure that if I turn to the majority leader, he has a number of priorities. I'm sure that the speaker and Mr. Adolph, we all have priorities. These are big priorities for us. We're going to have more. But yeah, we're not going to stop until we get it. Sorry. I'll get back to you.
Governor, the one thing that we haven't heard about this June 30th is the lottery privatization, work. And
It's been extended for a week. Yeah.
Are we at the point where a large number of bridges are going to have to be weight posted this summer? Expect that kind of action?
Yeah, I think I made my point about the partisanship that got into this one. And I do want to commend the Democrats in the Senate that came out and voted for it, a large number of them. I want to commend those Democrats in the House and the committee that came out and clearly made a very brave vote for it. But I think the best one to answer that would be my Secretary of Transportation, Barry. So I'm going to ask him to answer it.
Look, I think we've been very clear about this. There's consequences to not taking action. If you look at our website, you'll see a map of 1,200 bridges that will be weight restricted if we don't get action on transportation funding. That's due to the age of the system, the number of bridges we have, and the lack of revenue we have to get to all of them. In addition to that, we have 5 what we call orphan transit systems in the SEPTA area that we're not going to be able to fund. We have a Pittsburgh to Harrisburg train that would be jeopardized without additional revenue, the Pennsylvanian, because we have a new federal requirement to subsidize that. We have the Port Authority in Pittsburgh situation, where we negotiated a deal that was contingent upon having funding, and without additional funding, the Port Authority is in danger of losing that agreement on the labor agreement and reverting back to the old agreement. And there are 2 services in Pittsburgh we call the last mile that are also important services in Pittsburgh that we're not going to be able to fund. So it's across all modes. And the last part of that is the jobs that are going to be lost with this. You've heard me talk about it. We just lost a construction season by not getting this done now. So I don't have a construction. By the time this gets done in the fall, I've lost another construction season.
Secretary, this question was, are you ready now this summer?
We have a list on our map of 1,200 bridges. The governor said we're going to keep working on this. I'm going to meet with the legislative leaders. We're going to talk about the timing, and that's a consequence that will occur. And whether it occurs this summer is based on the age and the analysis of the bridge, which we're going to do. We'll let you know whether it'll happen this summer, whether it'll happen this fall. And, without question, without action in the fall, it will happen in the fall. But the jobs issue is very real because we just lost a construction season. So unfortunately, there's a lot of consequences to this. We've been talking about it for a lot of months. This should not be a surprise to any of you or anybody who's interested in this issue.
Secretary Sherwood, in the past month, you said if transportation funding bill doesn't happen before the summer, it's not going to happen. What changed your mind?
Well, the leaders have told me, and you just heard the governor say we're going to keep working on it. So the end of the first quarter, and we made a lot of progress, a lot more progress than I thought we were going to make on this issue. As the governor said, I want to commend all those who worked on this because it got a lot further, a $2.5 billion bipartisan bill with a 45-5 vote in the Senate. If you'd asked me to bet on that, I would not have suggested that we could have gotten a 45-5 vote in the Senate that showed that kind of bipartisan support. We also saw a bill of about $2 billion coming out of the House Transportation Committee, bipartisan. That's significant progress. We're very close to a bipartisan solution on transportation.
I thought the question was not how close things could be negotiated, but how the political reality of taking a vote on a bill containing tax increases. Why does that get easier after today?
I don't know if it gets easier. I think we've moved the ball a long way. As the governor said, on a lot of these issues, we've moved the ball a long way. And we are very close to a solution on this. And a lot of the dialogue occurred in the last 48 hours on this topic was very encouraging. We're not there. It's unfortunate. As the governor said, we took a shot. We'd hope to get there. Would I like to be standing in front of you talking about the bill that he's going to sign? Absolutely. I'd love to be talking to you about that. We're not there yet. We haven't given up. But there are clear implications that if we don't get there, there's going to be consequences to our transportation system.
Next question. Pete, you already got one. Huh?
No, he didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm wrong.
No, okay, I'm sorry. Then he's first and then you're next.
No, my sister. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, Pete. I thought you did. I try to be fair to you all.
Secretary Shook sort of alluded to this. I mean, one of the levers you have here is these weight restrictions on bridges. But traditionally, the budget has been the primary lever for trying to get things done. If you go into the fall without action on these, I mean, what's the impetus to act? What's the pressure on lawmakers?
Oh, I don't think the pressure goes away from the legislature. In fact, I think the pressure to get a bipartisan result in the House, and I know the Republicans behind me are working on it. Mike's been working very hard on it. You have a spectrum in both caucuses in the House. This pressure doesn't go away because it's a system that needs to be repaired. The pressure for money for transit, excuse me, continues. So this pressure doesn't go away. In fact, it probably is going to ramp up. Pete's next. Jan already got one.
You say you want a bipartisan solution, but I mean, the House Democrats seem to be pretty straightforward. They want to spend more than the Republicans want to spend. They want more on mass transit. Are you prepared to actually move the House number up?
Well,
move the mass transit number up?
I'm not going to get into whether we're going to move anything up at this point or not. We're still looking for the bipartisan. I find it amazing that from a politic perspective, that they took this position rather than from good policy for the benefit of the people of Pennsylvania. If they're saying that their refusal to put up a vote was because there was not enough money, that's like the starving man saying, you're only giving me half a loaf rather than a whole loaf, so I'm just not going to eat anything.
Governor, if I can go back to the first quarter, fourth quarter thing. I mean, this was in your budget address. So if this isn't the final whistle, what is your new deadline? I mean, is it definite?
Well, when do you guys end your session? November 30th of next year.
After the next election.
No.
Yeah, he said
Yeah.
after election day, general election day will occur before that.
Right,
yes.
you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it continues on. Okay. Thank you all. Oh, Charlie,
Governor Corbett.
I almost forgot Colombo. That's my name.
The House Democrats over the last couple of days.
Robert, it's not that funny.
The House Democrats over the last couple of days were saying a lot about how the transportation funding package was inadequate, but they were also saying a lot about how they felt like they had been completely shut out of significant discussions over the last 2.5 years. And third factor, which I guess goes to relations with House Republicans.
I'll tell you what, let them explain that to the people of Pennsylvania when they prevented a vote in the House, or didn't assist in a vote in the House on transportation money.
Well, just to finish the thought.
I cut you off, so go ahead.
so there's that, and then there is a third prong. There may have been some sentiment up there to stop privatization. They felt maybe they could kill two birds with one stone here by hitting the stall button.
I think I might have seen some of you in here report on that.
Well, I'm just curious, how much of this do you feel was those latter two things, them being shut out of the table and acting out of spite, more or less, political spite, more or less, and trying to work for their union allies in the states?
You're going to have to decide how much of it was. I'm not going to be able to find that out. I will tell you, though, that Secretary Shoke, how many meetings did you have on this?
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
With legislators on both sides of the aisle, including Democratic leadership at the very beginning of this issue. Any comments that they were not involved in this issue are completely untrue. I met with the Democratic leadership on this issue before the governor made his proposal, after he made his proposal, and the bill reflects a lot of their concerns.
Next time.
Would Mr. Church like to respond to that one?
No.
No.
Actually,
No.
it was drawn to our attention
Yeah.
that Secretary Shoke had met with Democratic leaders.
You can, if you want to talk to him afterwards. With no other questions?
Sorry. Do you believe you'll be able to get major policy issues through in the next year and a half?
Yes.
Can you lay out for us how you?
No, you asked me the question, I said yes.
Why do you say that you can?
Because we work we work very well. Look at what we've gotten done in 2.5 years. And I'm not going to tick it all off, but we've made fantastic progress in 2.5 years. We've reduced taxes. We have gotten reform. We've gotten tort reform. I mean, there's a long list. We'll give you the card if you didn't get to see it, what's happened in the last 2 years. And that's because we worked with the legislature. We worked with the House and the Senate. That isn't going to stop right now.
Why don't I see any Senate leaders here?
Because they finished an hour early. They're tired and probably all went home. These guys just finished. Last question.
The timeliness of the budget, is it an on-time budget if code bills still haven't been finalized and they have an impact on the budget?
Yes, it is, because there has to be a certification from the Secretary of the Budget and from the Revenue Department that we have enough money on hand to go into the next year. I've signed those certifications. They've been sent to me. I've endorsed them. And so, yes, we're on time. In fact, what was it, 10:15? Did you look at your watch? Thank you all.
For us, that's ahead of.